With more projects approved for restart, construction activities are resuming at a faster pace. This webinar will be shared with you, the specialist trades community, and observable good practices and workable solutions for safe management measures at work sites. Before we start, please note that as participants, you're on mute setting. Should you have any questions about the discussion topics, you may do so by clicking the Q&A button on the screen to type in your queries. When we get to the Q&A session at the end of this webinar, we will also be activating the raise hand function to take live questions from the audience. Should you wish to ask a question verbally at that time, do click the raise hand icon. Do also note that when the session ends, you will be directed to access an evaluation form after you have exited the webinar. Once submitted, you will be able to download the speaker's presentation materials via the website as shown. Today, we are pleased to have Engineer Clement Seng, Group Director, Building Plan and Management, Lead Audit and Inspection, Safe Worksite, BCA, and Mr. John Tan, First Vice President, STAS, to co-chair the session. Together with them from BCA, we have Engineer Puny Tan, Director, Building Plan and Policies Department, Engineer Dr. Chan, Deputy Director, Bridges and Structural Steel Department, Engineer Vivian Fu, Deputy Director, Strategic Engineering Project Department, Mr. Ted Chan, Executive Manager, Procurement Policies Department, and Mr. Abner Wee, Executive Manager, Green Building Policy Department. Without further ado, let us invite our webinar co-chairs to deliver their welcome remarks. Engineer Clement and Mr. Tan, please.
Hello, everyone, and very good morning. As you have heard from the announcement, MOM is in the final stages of clearing the dorms, and by mid-August, you will see most of the workers able to come out of the dorms. And so projects will be expected to ramp up in their work. I suppose this is very timely for us to have this sharing session that you guys will probably be interested to know what are the things to watch out for. And so we are quite happy to partner with STAS to be able to share some of the best practices or what to watch out for from the project side. And BCA also will also share some of the observations from our inspections of the projects that we inspected so far. So I hope you have a fruitful session this morning and hope to clarify as many of the questions and queries as possible later on. So I'll pass the time over to my co-chair, John. John would like to say a few words.
Yeah, hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this webinar conducted by BCA and together with STAS. STAS actually, our member mainly are trade specialists. So we have actually experienced many difficulty during this period on how to actually implementing the COVID safe measure. So I think this is timely for the for us, for our members and the so-called trade specialists to really have a better understanding on how are we going to get our job going. And we want to make sure that actually at the end, when the job really go on full swing, we are able to operate in a COVID safe environment and making sure that we protect ourselves, our employee, as well as the whole construction sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Clement and Mr. Tan. First up, we have Mr. Jeremy Tan, Deputy Director, Building Plan and Advertisement Licensing Department, BCA, who will be sharing on the findings and good practices observed during audit and inspection on project sites or supply work premises. Jeremy, over to you, please.
Hello, good morning. I'm Jeremy. I'll be doing a presentation for the sharing of the findings. I think first of all, let me get this. Okay, this will be the outline of my presentation. So I'll be sharing with you some of the ways, the preventing of the major COVID and outbreak, and the lessons learned from the built environment sector. And I'll be also be sharing with you some of the audit findings, inclusive of the good practices and the areas of improvement. All right. First of all, at date, we have approved to about 3,000 work site supply work premises for restart. So based on all these restart work, we need to ensure that there's a sustainability in terms of ensuring that the sites and the work premises are actually continue to implement the correct measures. So these are the three broad areas that need to be looked at, which is the safe workforce, safe worker accommodation and transportation, and of course, the safe work site. Now, Project Glory, this is a reminder for us of the risk that, that can actually happen. It's actually a site where there is an arrangement where there's a worker accommodation and work site, which is linked to 6 dormitories. So at the point when there is actually an infection, it became the largest construction site cluster, and it is something to remind us that of the risk of this COVID. Now, currently, there's actually no vaccine or medicine for COVID. So the real protection that we have is to implement the safe management measures, SMM, and to contain any spread quickly when it happens. So how well the SMM are observed will be key to avoiding the outbreaks at work sites. So BCA, we have set up an audit and inspection A&I team to check on the effectiveness of the implementation at the work site and the supply work premises. So the key objectives is to ensure that there is a safe access, safe distancing, and containment. So how do we do that? For safe access, essentially what we would want is a robust entry control system to make sure that the workers that goes into the site are actually approved personnel. So if these personnel are actually ensured to be safe, this aspect be controlled. The next aspect would be the safe distancing. This is not unlike what we do in the community. We have safe management officers or the safe distancing officers to ensure that the workers at site are actually kept within a distance while they work or while they rest. Now, there'll also be a segregation of teams and work zones. And when it's time for them to have meals, we want them to have pre-packed meals. And of course, to turn on the Trace Together app. So essentially, this is actually the safe access and safe distancing measures that we want. So if all this fails, the next aspect that we look at is the containment. So containment will look into how, if there are suspected cases or there's even confirmed cases, what are the response plans that you will have at site. Okay, this is another more recent case where 6 COVID cases were found in a work site, and it was found that, well, for this particular work site, because of the 6 cases, there were quarantine orders issued to 300 over close contacts in the workplace residents through social interaction. And based on investigation, it was found that the cause is due to the fact that there are places where the workers, they have common areas for lunch and rest areas, and they also share some form of transportation where workers from 3 different zones actually take the same transport and stay in the same place of residence. So based on this, it is something that we know that this is the cause for how the outbreak has actually turned out. Now, for this, the action taken was that MOH served the necessary enforcement, such as the stop work order, site closure, and have the site disinfected. The whole place was locked down with 77 workers conveyed to the government quarantine facilities and quarantine at site as well. So the key lessons learned here is that workers should be cohorted based on the work zones, and there should not be any mixing of different cohorts during transportation and in place of residence to prevent cross-infection. And of course, one of the lessons learned here also is to segregate the workers from different work zones and to stagger the use of lunch areas and rest areas. Now, I will actually go on to the audit findings that BC had. BCA, we have actually done, come to about 1,000 inspections. And this is essentially the kind of non-compliances that we have based on large projects and small projects. The size of the project is based on the contract sum of 3 million. So the top 6 non-compliances that we have here is that, just run through here, the mismatch in entry records, safe entry not installed, an absence of the SMM measures monitoring plan on site, and inadequate safety management officers, meals not individually packed, and no isolated sick bay at site. I'll actually go through one by one on this. Okay, the first aspect is that there's mismatch in entry records with approved work list. Essentially, what we want this to be done is that the workers who actually comes into the site should be the workers whom are actually tested safe, and they have actually applied to BCA for clearance. So a lot of reasons why they were not done so, because it's either the workers were rejected, or during the administration, the application to BCA, the information was not updated or it wasn't correct. So as a result of all these workers are not approved. So it is essential to remember for builders that these workers which are not approved, they should not be deployed to work at the work site. Now, these are actually some of the records when you apply and you get approved. And this is an email when the restart application is approved. Every 3 months, the builder would actually require to update BCA on the project schedule if there are any changes to the manpower deployment or place of accommodation of their approved work site via the respective links. Now, the approved emails will also list down the personnel not permitted to work at site with reasons shown for builders to follow up. Okay. And it's also essential to remember to include the previous list of approved personnel when updating on the new additions in your submission. So these are some of the administrative concerns that you need to remember when you submit the worksite, the list to BCA for approval. Okay, moving forward, this is the safe entry that you need to install at site. Okay, it is essential for you to install the safe entry NRIC version, which is linked to the MOM access code. The safe entry QR code is not something that we want. We want the one for NRIC version. Okay. You would need to enable the restriction at the CMP worksite icon, stands for Marine and Process, Marine Construction and Process Sites. As shown before, the scanner can show the access code, green or red, of personnel visitors entering the site. Project should also not allow any personnel visitors with access code red to enter the site. Now, the next item will actually be the missing SMM monitoring plan on site to ensure compliance. The SMM monitoring plan is very important because it shows the planning that you have on site. This is the list of the types of plan that you would want to have, comprising the segregation plan, which is essentially to differentiate and segregate the work zones for different team of workers. The cohorting plan for the places where the workers would actually stay and sleep. The places of accommodation, they need to be cohorted to prevent mixing. And suspected cases or even confirmed cases, if you have cases like this, how do you deal with them? So based on all these different plans, what are your site communication that you want to do to your workers? Because planning is not sufficient without communicating to the workers. And of course, a series of monitoring plans that you have. So essentially, all these plans are something that we would want you to actually have on site to make sure that the measures are strictly adhered to. Now, this is one example of the evacuation plan for suspected cases. If there's actually suspected workers, so this is a series of the procedures that you want to have to make sure that the workers are adequately treated before you send him to the clinic, and of course do a recording of this to the authorities. In the event there are actually confirmed cases, these are actually a list of procedures that you would do, vacating the site and cordon off the immediate workplace, and essentially inform the authorities of this confirmed case, and lastly to clean up and disinfect your construction site. Now, the next aspect that we will look at is the inadequacy of the safety management officer. Now, it is important for this SMO, okay, with the assistants, which is the SDO, Safe Distancing Officer. These are the personnel that will ensure that the site measures are actually being implemented effectively. So some of these are based on the ratio of the workers to the SMO. You can actually see from here. But the key principle here is that the SMO and SDO must be present on site at all times when works are carried out. This to ensure that the proper measures are actually being implemented on site. Now, the next aspect that we find out during our audits is this part on meals not individually packed. For the workers, for the longest time, they have actually they have always been cooking at site. So based on MOH, the research shows that one of the fastest way for the COVID get transmitted is through sharing of food. So that is why at site, we would want the workers to not share food and not cook on site to share food, and we want them to have prepared food. So this is actually one of the findings that we have on site. Okay, next, proper sick bay and no isolated sick bay at site. In the event that if a worker were to be found to be sick or infected, there must be a place dedicated for the workers to rest while you do up a follow-up action to extract him to the clinic. So this sick bay should be an isolated place, and it should be well ventilated for the workers' rest. Okay, next, it would be the, we should also install the Singapore SG Work Pass app to check access code of workers and to tap on access code to find out that whether it is red. Okay, this is the other slide to show that this is green. So this is will allow the workers to actually work on site. Now, all personnel should also install the latest TT app in their mobile devices, which will facilitate traceability in the event of C+ cases. So in the event that there is an infection, we can actually ensure that the proper tracking and tracing of the workers can be done. Okay, so I'll actually touch on next on the good practices that we have found on site. Okay, these are some of the pictures that you can see. There's dedicated entrances and exits for teams. This is something that even in our NTUC, in places of the community, that you can see that there is a place to go in and a place to go out. So it's a one-way traffic. And there's also clear safe distancing measures and markings done on site, and clear zoning as well. And there are also appropriate places for digital scanning of temperature devices where the workers can actually take their temperature daily. And as I mentioned just now, the importance of communication, there should be also a situation where the SMOs should brief the SMM, the measures, to the workers on a constant basis. And of course, lastly here, showing here is that workers should also be given individually packed meals during their meal times. Okay, more pictures that you can see of some examples of good practices. Stagger working hours, you can see how this is actually being implemented on site, and there's SMO inspection checklist. And should anything which is not so right, workers would actually have will be able to feedback. And there's some posters here where the workers can report the authorities should there be any things which are not compliant on site. Some more pictures here on the NRIC safe entry system using smart devices. And lastly, the visual identifier via the color armband wristband. So this is actually essentially some measures to differentiate the workers of different zones. We also have some examples of the non-compliances. As you can see here, workers are not wearing masks during their work, and there are also situations where workers are found not authorized at site, and the sick bay is not properly provided for. And of course, we also come across workers who cook on site, which will end up to sharing of food. So based on these non-compliances, based on our BCA audit, BCA will also take enforcement actions from very simple actions such as giving a timeout, stop work order. And if this thing were to persist, BCA will not hesitate to take up more serious enforcement actions such as giving fines or even up to prosecution actions. So essentially, this is the whole framework of what our A&I regime is. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy, for sharing on the A&I inspection on site. Next, Mr. Joseph Goh, Managing Director, DLM Private Limited, will be sharing on the good practices of effective safe management measures implemented during the process of replacing major ACMV equipment. Mr. Joseph Goh, please.
Hi, good morning. So let me control the slides in a second. Okay, I'm Joseph Goh. I'm the Managing Director of DLM Private Limited. We are an M&E specialist contracting firm. So we handle major retrofits like chiller plant replacement, HD switchgear transformer replacement, and we also do design and build projects for chiller plant and also HT systems that will meet CREMAC Platinum kind of standards. So these slides that I'm presenting now is what we use to brief internally within our company for project application. We also have another slides that we use for our office Safe MM. So we are aware that at the onstart of the after we have restart after the circuit breaker, we have to comply to these three COVID safe restart criteria: safe workforce, safe workers accommodation, transport, and safe worksite. So that's how we targeted how we manage our project execution. So during the first day of restart work, we actually our internal safety officer, which is now also our COVID safe management officer, will conduct a briefing with our own men, also with all the subcontractors that that's below our hierarchy. So we have to make sure that all workers download the contact tracing app, Trace Together, and also the WorkPass the SG WorkPass app for the access code. If not, later when the work execute, we have problem entering the site. And also the access code will allow us to track whether they are green, whether they can go to site to work. In terms of regular COVID-19 testing, so we do that like a tracking list to check that they've been tested every 2 weeks. If not, then we will write to BCA, or I heard in next week there will be another system that will come out called swab test registration system. So we will register for that when it comes. So this will ensure that the workforce is tested every 2 weeks. And the workers we're always reminded to minimize their social interaction, because that is how community spread happens. So at the dormitory where they stay, for my workers, they are mostly staying at purpose-built dormitory, except for maybe less than 5% of my workforce. So at the dormitory, they have to follow strict safety management measures that is being in place by the dorm operators. So we have to remind our workers to do that. And on our end, and also for our subcontractors, we have to arrange dedicated transport for our workers, pick them up, and then send them to each work site. So one vehicle can only go to one work site, and then they will have to come back and then pick up another group. So so we check our workforce. For example, this is a XX project, which is a major chiller retrofit project. We have before at the onset, we actually table out each of our trades and our sub trades, how many workforce we have, the expected during particular month, like this is from 2nd June to 14th June, how many people are there from different contractors, and where are they staying. So this will check whether they have complied to whether their accommodation is already been cleared, and also whether the transportation is able to comply. So we'll remind them how to comply at our onset briefing. And also we assign each of the trade contractors a color. So they at the site, so their helmet, they will stick a band. This is for us to ensure safe distancing, and also when they've been segregated into teams, we will be able to monitor them and there's no intermingling. So at the accommodation, we have to ensure safe distancing between the beds, the rest area, even for the basins and the urinals, it's either they use alternate ones or unless they can achieve the safe distancing. So in terms of safe transport, I think everyone is quite aware now. LTS has given, and also MOM, to comply with this 0.9496 meters squared per pax. So a 10-feet lorry can ferry 8 workers. So and each trip can only bring to a particular site. And after that, and make sure all the workers on the lorry wear masks. So if you have bigger lorries, you can ferry more workers. And when they reach at each destination, we actually pass sanitizers, disinfectants to the driver, and the driver will disinfect the vehicle before they head back and pick up the next group. So next, I move on to COVID safe work site. So how do we manage that at our work site? We have our own SMO and SDO. So the SMO is supported by the SDO in the implementation on site, and each of the sub teams supervisor, they will be a COVID safe team leader. So they will be ensure of taking care of their sub team on the site. So this just a picture below here is just happened in 11th of July. That's just 2 weeks back. So we have a site where the people are standing at safe distancing where we conduct 2-box meeting. Yeah. So we make sure that at this 2-box meeting, we will tell them, remind them about safe distancing. Whenever there are latest posters or infographics, we'll print them out in their native languages and put at the entrances and also the rest area. So the workers can have a chance to be reminded about and get updated about the measures and also the importance of personal hygiene. And also we pre-screen the workers' health status besides the access code temperature taking before entering the sites. So you can have temperature monitoring system like this. They can take temperature twice a day and then you can be recorded automatically, or you can take a thermometer to take their temperature and record them on form. The 2-box meeting wise, we have boxes where they stand at safe distance. And also for safe entry, you must use NRIC now in order to enter the site, because this is linked to the access code as mentioned earlier by Jeremy. So how do we actually reduce physical interaction? That is one of the ways to have staggered work hours for breaks also. So some workers can come earlier, some groups can come at a later time, and they can also have different break times so that they don't all segregate at the rest area at the same time. The important thing is we break them into teams, and each team can also only work at a single zone. So later I will show you how we do it at one of our job sites, how we break them into teams. So each team will be given a different color tape on their helmet for us to, this will be easy for the SMO and SDO to monitor them. So for this particular project, every Tuesday and third Friday, the SDO and SMO will do compliance check and also will record down any non-compliance corrective action. So this is one of our job sites where we're changing chiller retrofit. So this zone is where a particular trade group can work. Same for this. So they will never. So the SDO's job is to SMO, and SMO's inspection will ensure that ensure that they don't intermingle. They are restricted to their respective work zone. And the following week there may be another chat again where this work zone and this work zone may interswap. Or it could be even a chat every 3 days. So up to your workflow, you can start to restrict work zones at different timings. So we try to minimize our on-site meetings. If can, we have virtual meetings. If we can't, then the meeting room need to have safe distancing, same as the outside office, and try to restrict the number of people that can be in there. So cleanliness of work site is also very important. So the waste are always disposed at the end of the day. And there's designated rest area. For example, the job which we can have a loading dock area where we can designate put some barrier to designate some rest area. It must be well ventilated and you have enough space for the workers to space out. So sanitizers are provided at the entrance, and they also use it to wipe down their tools before they start using it. And at best, they try not to share tools, and that's what we try to introduce, to have every worker, they have their own individual tools. But certain heavy duty tools has to be shared, and then that will have to be disinfected before use. Same for material delivery. They wear masks, and they also keep a safe distance from the workers who take over the materials. So basically, it's key to, in my company's operation, I feel that it was key that I quickly appoint safe management officers. Personally, myself, all my project managers, senior project managers, directors have all gone for the SMO course held by BCA, and we all have been certified. So we know exactly what the safe management measures that need to be in place, and also we can assist and give support to our SMO in the implementation of SMM. And we've given them many of our engineers who have attended the SMM course also, they have now become the SDO for our SMO. So they also know when they're on site, they know how to check, how to ensure that the safe distance is in place, and they also will report any non-compliance to the SMO so that the SMO can record down, and then we have some corrective action done on site. Yeah, so basically this is just a quick sharing how we at DLM conduct our work with a COVID safe in place. Yeah, thank you, and stay safe.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph Goh. Coming up, Ms. Janice Tan, Manager, Jin Quack Construction, will be bringing us through the implementation of effective safe management measures on the reconstruction of a landed housing project. Ms. Janice Tan, please.
Hello, everyone. Very good morning. My name is Janice. I'm working for Jin Quack Interior Private Limited. We are a builder. We build landed houses, and we also do renovation works. Our project is much smaller scale as compared to Mr. Joseph Goh, who has just spoken. So we are considered the small projects of about 3 million and less. Today, I'm going to share with you some of the safe management measures, or SMM, that we implement at one of our job sites, which is landed 4.5-story house, which comes with a basement and an attic. When we first resumed work after the circuit breaker, the first thing we did was to appoint our SMO for the various job sites. We came out with a plan for our SMM. We knew that was very important to try to keep the workplace safe and our workers safe as well. So we gathered our workers, we briefed them on what is required of our SMM, how we are going to control through the help of our SMO, how we're going to implement, and the cooperation that we actually we expected from the workers. Then we also communicated with our subcontractors, because we knew it was important for them to cooperate for us to implement the SMM effectively. So for instance, our subcontractors, we requested them to assign dedicated work teams to our job site, so that they will not move the same team of workers to other job sites and vice versa, to avoid the cross contact of different group of workers. And we also got the subcons understanding that at their accommodation, the workers would be cohorted separately without mixing with workers from other job sites. And as well as during transport, they are supposed to have a safe distancing in the lorries and arriving at staggered time at the job site. These are some of the things, some of the communications we did before we started work, to ensure that our workers and our subcontractors are aware of the safety measures that are necessary. And of course, we also plan the work schedules such that we divide the job sites into different work zones, and we allocated color codes to the different workers, as quite similar to what Mr. Joseph Goh has elaborated just now. So now I would like to go through the slides we have prepared to give you some ideas of how we implement the measures at our job site. When we started work at the job site, we set up a work counter for our SMO, where he could track every worker. When the workers arrive in the morning, they will queue up in front of his counter with a 1 meter distancing space. And the SMO would use the Safe Entry NRIC app on his phone to scan each worker before they are allowed into the work site. And similarly, when the workers leave the work site, he would use the same app to check them out. The SMO would check the temperature of the workers. In this case, we actually use a thermometer to check them manually. And there are forms that we designed for the SMO to monitor and to record every worker's particulars, their company name, the vehicle, plate number that they arrive by, and the time of arrival and departure of from the job site, etc. And after the recording and the checking of the workers, the SMO would conduct a toolbox meeting with each specific team of workers that arrive. The purpose was to remind them about the safety measures such as distancing, no sharing of food, etc. This will be done every day on a regular basis, so as to avoid any issues at the job site. The workers have full understanding of what is expected of them and what is required. You can see that at the SMO counter, we have, and also on the walls, we put up posters to remind everyone about the safe and good practices on site. We also make sure there is sufficient hand sanitizer and soap at the wash area at each entrance and the exit of the job site. The housekeeping is done twice a day, which includes cleaning up the job site, removing the trash, disinfecting the area. And as mentioned earlier, we planned our work schedule and time schedule in advance to make sure that the job site is not overcrowded at any time or any day. So the workers, the subcontractors are given schedules to arrive at the job site. Different groups of workers arrive at the job site at staggered time, so that in each work zone, only one group of workers would be there, and there's no mixing. Since our job site is a small job site, we comply with the maximum 10 number of workers at any one time. And in this job site, the building is 4.5 story. So we divide them into different work zones. For our site, since it's small, it's easier to manage. Floor 1 is zone 1, floor 2 is zone 2, etc. So, and every floor is given a color code, which we will put on the workers' helmets. As you can see, the different colors when the workers arrive in the morning, when they check in, they'll be given the color stickers by our SMO to put on their helmets. So this will allow us, allow our SMO and whoever they're on site to identify the workers easily. And so we can easily monitor them and to make sure that they do not mix together. And over here in this slide, you can see that we put up posters on the different zones to demarcate them. from zone 1 to zone 4 and using different color codes. We have floor markings and also markings to show the traffic flow in and out of the job site, also up and down the stairs of the different floors of the building. Okay, in this slide, you can see that we have an evacuation plan in our SMM on the procedure to follow if a worker should fall sick while working on site. And we set up an isolation room and also an isolation toilet next to it. So in case of any suspected case, the workers can be isolated in a ventilated room and with a toilet next to it to use, and the SMO can follow up with the necessary actions to inform the owner of the companies, to inform the authorities, and for further instruction, whether to send the worker to the nearby hospitals. With that, I end my slide and presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jenny Stan. Thank you, Ms. Jenny Stan. Right now, we'll move on to the Q&A session. You may raise your question by clicking on the raise hand or the Q&A button on the screen. Over to you, Engineer Clement and Mr. Tan, please.
Okay, perhaps before we take oral questions, we've actually collated a list of Q&A prior to this session, and I thought to be able to cover as many people's questions as possible, we'll run through a summarized version of what we have collated, and my colleagues will take you through. Basically, there are four big groups. One on applications, second on workforce, third on safe accommodation, and lastly on worksite. So over to firstly to Charmaine on applications.
Hello. Hi. Can we cross-deploy workers to multiple projects? What if they are conducting short duration as specialist contractors? For this question, specialist contractors carrying short-term works, 1 to 2 hours or 1 to 2 days a week, are allowed to work on multiple projects, but they need to observe safe management measures supervised by the SMO or SDO, and to be kept away from workers from the main workers, the rest of the workers in the project. They should not intermingle with the other workers to minimize the risk of cross-infection. Yeah, so this is for this question. Next question.
Charmaine, can you move a bit faster on this in the interest of time? Charmaine?
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize it was muted. Okay, for this question, for changes to manpower deployment or places of accommodation, you may submit under this modification for previously approved application under the BCA Construction Supply link, the same application link for your restart application, but you have to quote the previously approved application number. Next question. For applications to restart renovation works, how do we make amendments to our applications? For renovation and all construction account works, they will need to resubmit the application with the full list of workers. It's a resubmission with the full list of workers, not just the additional workers. So I repeat that, it's a full list of workers. So the next question, please. So as the main contractors will compile the details of subcontractors for application to restart, does it mean that subcontractors do not submit anything to BCA? Yes, the main contractors are required to compile all personnel working on site, including workers from the subcontractors. So subcontractors should not or do not need to submit anything to BCA directly. Yep, that's all.
Okay, Adna.
Morning, Edna and Ming Yao from the Safe Workforce team will answer the next set of questions. Yeah,
Yep.
Ming Yao.
Okay, yeah, sure. So for the first question, how do we actually check the swab test result? So basically right now, there's this SW mom care apps that can be downloaded from the app stores, and the actual swab test result and the date can be displayed in these apps. Okay, you can go to the next questions. Okay, so do recover workers need to go for the swab test? So currently we actually align with MOH. At this point of time, there's no requirement for the recover workers to go for the swab for now. Okay. So how do we actually apply for the swab test for our workers and for the subcontractors? So just now earlier, Charmaine has briefed you guys on the application. So for all the subcontractors, please submit your details to the main con, and subsequently BCA will actually contact you on your swab arrangement once your application has been approved. Okay. So similarly, Charmaine has also addressed on this concern on whether workers can be worked on multiple sites. So if for short-term workers there's a requirement, you will still need to submit your workers' details to the different main con, okay, as a separate application. But there will not be any duplicate swabs as at our end. We will actually remove all the duplications. So for this, right, BCA will actually inform individual firms on their swab test schedules within 2 weeks after receiving the approval. So if we have not got to you, do write into BCA so that we can actually investigate further on the swab arrangement.
Okay, I'll answer this question. For this query, right, please check, do a first check on MOM's website on their list of cleared dormitories and blocks. Because MOM's website is the reference list which we should all be referring to when it comes to cleared dormitories or blocks. So for this case, it seems like the worker's address, right, was not updated in MOM's database. So what you can do is that you can go check OFWAS or ePass online and check that the worker is registered under their latest residential address. They're not registered under like an address that they stayed in like a few months ago. Yeah, because if the address is registered incorrectly, the access code will be affected and maybe reflecting the wrong color. Yeah.
Hi, hey, so this is Ted. I'll be taking you all through the safe accommodation and transport questions. So for the first question, as workers are not allowed to take public transport, can they take their own motorbikes, e-bike taxis to construction site for work? And can their employer or company staff drive them from dormitories to construction site using their vehicle? So for the first part of the question, as long as your workers are working on the construction site, they will not be allowed to take public transport, but for their own personal vehicles, they are allowed to do so. And whether their employers or company staff can drive them, you may, but you have to take the proper SMMs and ensure that there are no intermixing of workers between, no intermixing of workers from different work sites. Okay, for the next question, are work pass and S-pass holders living outside dormitories allowed to take public transport? Again, this question for workers that are working on construction sites, they will not be allowed to take public transport. But for workers that are staying outside the dorms and working at non-construction sites, they will be allowed to take public transport. Next question. Hold on now. Sorry, I'm trying to get the access for the slides. Okay, for the next question, can foreign workers go out for shopping after work and during their off days? And are they allowed to take public transport? So currently we don't have any requirements that this allows them to do this, but we strongly encourage your workers to not go out after work and during their off days, and only go out for getting the essential necessities. We don't want them to be intermixing with the public, as they're considered higher risk at this point. Also, MOM will be working on something which will be published soon on their website, so you guys can keep a lookout for that. Okay, next question. Can the same lorry pick up workers from different dormitories to send to one work site? So the answer to this is no. If your driver wants to pick up workers from different dormitories, they have to do it in multiple trips. So each single trip should only have workers from one dormitory. Does the driver need to be staying outside dormitories? Is it okay for the driver to be staying within dormitories? Yes, it's okay for them to be staying within the dormitories. Next question, is it all right to have workers staying in the same room in the dormitory but working on different project sites? So according to the updated cohorting requirements, we can have cases where there will be workers that are working on different project sites staying in the same room in the dormitory, but this will be limited to the workers that are considered part-time. So for this, you can actually go to our BCA website and read up on the FAQs. It was recently updated on the 21st of July. So can an S-Pass holder, or in this case construction engineers, stay in the same HDB unit as other tenants not from the construction industry? Currently, we don't have any requirements that disallows this, but we also, again, strongly discourage workers from other industries or other sectors staying with our construction sector as pass holders or work permit holders. We might also be working on disallowing this in the future to continue to bubble wrap this a bit tighter. Do S-Pass holders working for renovation projects require dedicated transport? The short answer is yes. Now, next question, is safe accommodation required for workers working on renovation works but not involved in construction projects? Again, for renovation projects, the workers will still be required to fulfill the safe accommodation criteria. And for the next question, for renovation works, can workers in the same lorry be dropped off at two different job sites with the same trip? Again, this does not fulfill the safe transport requirements, so no, it has to be single trips, point to point. Moving on to safe work site.
Okay, what's the difference between Safe Entry NRIC and Safe Entry QR? Safe Entry NRIC has the ability to integrate with the MOM work pass to reflect the access code at the Safe Entry gantry. But whereas the Safe Entry QR code is unable to do this integration. Next. Is it necessary for vendors to scan Safe Entry if they're entering to drop off goods leaving within 3 minutes or check out during lunch? So for all entry and exits to sites, there will be a need to check in and out using Safe Entry, which is the same as any entrance to shopping malls or shops. Next question. Is there an alternative to Trace Together app for MINDEF projects if handphones are not allowed to be brought in? I understand there's a wearable Trace Together version to be released, but at this moment, there's only TT app on handphone. So for the time being, may look into having a secure bag to put handphones, which allow the TT app to function, but unable to access the phone. Next. What is considered a construction site versus a non-construction site? Example, major NA works in existing factory. So for construction site or projects are defined whereby works that require building plan submission and often permit to commence work application to BCA, whereby there is a project reference number that begins with an A or an E. So if A works that requires submission to BCA, then it will be considered as a construction project or construction site. Can specialist trade contractor worker use toilets at construction site? They may use if there's a dedicated toilet allocated for them. As much as possible, they should not share toilets with the other cohorted workers of the project. This is to prevent possible cross-infection between the main workers and the workers from the specialist contractors. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, we've actually ran out of time exactly on the dot, but I think we can take a couple of questions. So maybe we can take the first one from the audience.
Yeah, hi, Cindy Lee. We've allowed you to talk. Can you unmute yourself and speak up? Thank you.
Yes, hi. Okay. Actually, the question I submitted just now was answered. Being the one that SG work pass show my workers as green, but the dormitory has not been cleared. The answer given was that probably the address wasn't updated, but actually we have updated the address already. So he's a recovered worker. His current work pass, SG work pass is shown as green, but the dormitory operator doesn't allow him to leave. So I'm not sure why is there this discrepancy.
Okay, Abner here. So regarding this case, have you checked with the dormitory operator what is the reason that they're saying that they're not letting the worker leave? Because if they are told that the dormitory has been cleared and the access code is green, right, by right, nothing should be stopping the worker from starting work already.
The operator said their dormitories are not cleared yet.
Oh, okay. So if the
access code may not be green.
But the access code is green. I'm not sure why.
No, you use SG work pass to scan, right?
Yes.
Not safe entry lah.
Not safe entry.
So is there a issue with that? Maybe not that It's a workforce site maybe.
Sorry again?
Yeah, because it does seem like quite a strange issue when the dorm operator is not letting the workers go. Yeah, maybe you could drop me an email after this, then I could follow up this specific case to get more details also.
Okay, can I have your name, please?
Yeah, I will drop a message to you.
Okay,
yeah, I'll email you.
Thank you.
Okay, can we have the next person, Yao Haifu? Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning. Okay, I would like to ask, with all the uncertainties going on in the industry right now, can the panelists actually give us an insight with regards to time? How do you actually view all this with regards to time, with regards to contractually?
Maybe with one of our speakers can take this question. Would either Joseph or Janice or maybe even John can take this question?
Okay, maybe I try to help a bit. It's actually talking about times and as well as contractor might be the completion period that will be affected.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that is under the COVID Act. There is actually some allowance for us to claim for, as a contractor, to claim for the delay, the extension of time. So I think this is covered under the contractor aspect. From what I actually understand is that we are allowed to have about up to 6 months of the extension of time for any contract affected by COVID-19.
Are you referring to just only public projects or SIA contracts, or?
Is applied to all projects actually. apply to all projects on the COVID Act. Actually, I think there is a. I attended one of the webinar also conducted by some legal personnel, and the advice is that it's actually extension of time of 6 months, provided we can justify that actually we are actually affected by COVID-19. So I think this will be actually helpful to contractor like us. But I think also fall back to, like for example, trade specialists, most of us are all subcontractors. So it's also fall back to the so-called contractual condition between the main contractor and the subcontractor. So there's a little bit more on the legal aspect lah.
Understand. Can I request, finally, can I request that BCA organize more on this time issue to educate the industry with more details? Can organize some kind of webinar to educate the industry. Can I request for this?
Yeah, we can look into this. But currently, actually, my understanding is public projects is quite clear. It was announced in the papers for public projects. But I think for private projects, it may not be so clear. It depends on the circumstances of the contractual terms. Yeah, that's the current my current understanding. But we'll look into your suggestion. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Right. Can we have?
Can we have the next?
Yeah.
Hi, can we have the next person, Christine Wong,
yeah,
to unmute yourself, please? Thank you.
Hello, thanks. I'm just trying to clarify for contractors, if you are the main con, you're saying that for subcons workers, we also need to apply the approval for them. But isn't it the application is for company corp pass? So if you are not under our headcount, are we supposed to also apply for the subcons workers? How do I understand for this, rationale, like the main con applying approval for the subcon to work in the same project, but they're under different headcounts?
The arrangement now for projects is like this because the main con is responsible for the control of the entire site, including planning of the work zones and also coordinating between the various subcontractors. That's why the arrangement is like this. But I thought this is also where a lot of questions come in because the details that the subcon lodged with MOM in terms of worker details may not be exactly the same as what the subcon give to their main con. And so when a main con applies, there is this problem, and then some of the workers cannot be actually not approved. So this is the lesson learned from some of the other contractors who have experienced the same problem.
But how do we address it? What is the
You need to make sure that the details are exactly the same. I mean, it has to be exactly the same in terms of PIN number, the address of the accommodation. Exactly the same, in formatting, and the numbers don't get mixed up, space, no space, and all kind of thing.
Okay, just to confirm what I understand. Yeah, just what I want to confirm what you understand from you. Meaning now all the subcons or workers will park under main con. So main con will be the one person that applies everything.
Yes.
Then if they really gotten approved, can they use for multiple projects, or they have to reapply again with the same group of workers? Meaning some of the workers for site A have team 1 and team 2. But site B will have only team 1 and part of team 2. So maybe 1.5. So how do I use this approval to use 2 sites? Or I need to apply another one?
Different project sites will have different application.
But the thing is, now you advise me that I have reputation from BCA. They say that I don't need to apply twice if for different sites, meaning the approver can share by site B, site C, site D. So how do I understand this so much of contradiction? I cannot follow you.
Can I understand when you talk about project, is it a construction site project or is it a renovation project?
Renovation.
Okay. So we are talking today, the context is construction site. That's why this is the arrangement. For renovation is correct. Renovation because it is that means it's non-construction site, right? Individual subcons will apply for the approval to start. And that one is more simplified. We don't track the different projects. So after getting the first approval, and then subsequently you have a new job, you use the same workers, you don't have to come in again. As a renovation subcon, you don't have to come in again. Unless you have new workers that you want to bring in for your new renovation project.
Okay.
So there's a difference between renovation work and construction site. So renovation works not considered construction site, meaning no need building plan approval from BCA or permit from BCA. Okay.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I have the next person, Wendy Rao, to unmute yourself, please? Thank you.
Mr. Rao?
Hi.
Yes, I would like to check how many people can sit for 10 and 14 footer lorry in front and at the back.
Okay, Ted.
So for your 10 and 14 footer lorry, it depends what the maximum passenger capacity is. So now we are having a 25% reduction in that capacity. So for example, if you originally can sit 20 people, then currently you should only sit 15. Then for the front of the lorry, you should only be sitting one, because I understand there's LTA's requirement as well to have one additional passenger along with the driver, right?
Sorry, I can repeat again.
Okay, so for your lorries, right? It's basically dependent on the maximum passenger capacity that was assigned to the lorry. So if previously, for example, your lorry has a maximum passenger capacity of 20, currently our requirement is that it should be 25% less of the original max passenger capacity. So in this case, you can only sit 15 workers in the back. But I also understand that from LTA's requirement that you will require at least one more passenger that sits with the driver. So in this case, then it will be, in this example, 16 workers.
Okay, because previously there's this safe distancing requirement for the lorry. 10 footer, they can only sit for 1, 2, 3, 4 at the back. So does that still apply for this? Or we still based on 25% of what you mentioned?
Yeah, so now it's based on the 25%. I think this requirement was actually removed quite a while ago. The previous safe distance within the vehicles. So now, as long as your workers fulfill the 25% less of the MPC, and they ensure that they have the other safe management measures like wearing their masks, do not talk in the vehicle, and all the other safe management measures, then it is actually that's actually the current requirement.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm afraid I think that's all the time we have. But I thought I'll leave you with some parting points. If you can't remember anything out of today's session, there are actually just a few key points you need to remember in terms of keeping COVID safe. Firstly, healthy workers, healthy and approved workers. Of course, that one you take temperature, you take your oximeter test, oximeter readings and all that. Second is, all the rules, and there are many rules can be quite confusing. But actually, it's all about segregation, cohorting, and basically no mixing. This is particularly important. I would like to emphasize for subcons, especially some of the specialist subcons we move from project to project. So what it means is you have dedicated teams for each project and don't mix with the non-construction workers. Okay, so just bear this in mind. And when we talk about segregation, the weak point, the weak point is the site, common facilities in the site or even in the dorms. Common facilities are your toilets or your canteen, those or even common staircase. So Singapore very small, right? We are tight in space. So we use staggering of groups using these common facilities. But please bear in mind when you schedule for staggered timing, please give enough time between the teams between each groups using the common facilities. Enough time for each group to enter and come out, and then also the time to disinfect the place. So please bear this in mind because these are the final details that will either make or break the bubble. And lastly, everything we do here is actually for traceability. It is not a case of when it happens, C plus is actually, or if it happens, but actually when C plus happens, because when all the sites are open up, there will be more activities and more risk. So if you're able to trace the activity of your workers or your site personnel well, what it means is that if there is a C plus case specifically happen on your site, you are able to narrow down exactly who are the people got close contact with this C plus, and which is the localized work zone that need to be cleaned. Otherwise, what happens is if you don't have this proper tracing, chances are that MOH or BCA will need to close the whole entire site, which is going to be very, very bad for your project, affect your project tremendously. So please help yourselves by implementing tight safe management measures because of this reason. Okay, I'll just leave you with this, and maybe my co-chair would like to have some parting words.
Yeah, hi. Basically, I think every one of us as a contractor, we wanted to resume work as soon as possible and go back to our old normal. But I think the old normal will have to change to a new normal. The new normal involved with SDM, okay, COVID safe measure. That actually the objective is to ensure that every one of us are safe. And if things happen, we know exactly what to do. Okay, I think BCA and STAS are here to provide any assistance or help. If you all got any problem, and after this webinar, you still got questions, please come forward. We try our best to help. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, webinar co-chair, panelists, speakers for the valuable insights about the good practices of COVID-safe measures for specialist trade in construction. It has been an engaging session. Before we end, we are pleased to share that BCA will be launching these resource kits for the industry to guide project teams and companies on how to ensure smooth and safe resumption of construction activities. The resource kits are available in both English and Chinese. These guides could be accessed through the links posted on our Telegram channel, so do subscribe to our channel for the latest updates on construction restart. We've come to the end of this session. After exiting this webinar, you'll be directed to access an evaluation form for today's session. The presentation materials will be made available at a later date. Also, we are pleased to share that BCA is now on Telegram and may wish to subscribe to it to find out the latest updates and information on the built environment. On this note, we thank you for your participation and making this webinar a success. We wish you and project teams a safe and smooth restart. Signing off, this is Kian Wei from BCA. Thank you.